You're sitting on the edge of your bed, staring at your shoes. In 20 minutes, you need to leave for a dinner with your friends. You like your friends and want to see them, but tonight your battery is completely empty, and the thought of leaving the house feels like climbing a mountain. Then your phone buzzes. "I'm so sorry, can we reschedule?" In that exact second, you don't feel disappointed. You feel a massive physical wave of relief. Your nervous system finally exhales. If you know this exact feeling, you probably also know that your most healing days are the ones where absolutely nothing is planned. The phone is quiet, and the front door is locked. Today, we're breaking down the psychology of people who genuinely prefer staying home and what it actually says about their personality, brain, and emotional world. There is a common script regarding people who prefer home. You may have heard it, or perhaps you have internalized it yourself. It says that staying in is antisocial. It suggests that you are missing out. It implies that a healthy life is measured by visibility, by how often you are seen in public spaces. These assumptions rely on the idea that human connection only happens in high-stimulus environments. They frame the preference for solitude as a dislike of people. But they have it backward. Choosing to stay home isn't a retreat from life. It is how you recover from it. Preferring home is rarely about disliking others. It is often about sensitivity to input. There's a difference between not wanting connection and wanting it in smaller, more intentional doses. It is possible to deeply love people, yet find the container of modern social interaction exhausting. To understand this preference, we have to look at the biology of the nervous system. Every time you step out the door, your brain enters a state of high alert. It is constantly predicting. It monitors traffic, navigates crowds, reads facial expressions, deciphers tone of voice, and filters out the noise of the environment. This is known as cognitive load. For a highly sensitive or reactive nervous system, the cost of this processing is expensive. Some nervous systems take in more information than others. This isn't a personality flaw, it's biology. Sensory gating, the brain's ability to filter incoming stimuli, varies from person to person. For some, background noise fades easily. For others, it stays sharp. Conversations overlap, lighting feels brighter, social cues stack on top of each other. Cognitive load increases quietly but steadily. Home functions as a predictable environment. At home, the lighting is under your control. The temperature is set to your preference. The sounds are familiar: the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboard. From a neurobiological perspective, home represents a state of low predictive error. Your brain doesn't have to guess what is going to happen next. It knows where the water glass is. It knows who is in the other room. This reduces the thousands of micro decisions the brain must make every hour. For some, staying home is not a refusal to participate in the world. It is an act of recalibration. It is the only place where the sensory input matches the nervous system's capacity to process it.
There is a specific nuance here that often goes unnoticed. Many people who prefer home actually enjoy being out once they are there. They enjoy the dinner, they enjoy the walk. The difficulty lies in the transition. We can call this threshold anxiety. In physics, there is a concept called activation energy. the energy required to start a reaction. For a sensitive person, the activation energy required to leave the house is incredibly high. It involves a mental checklist. Am I dressed correctly? What is the route? How will I get back? This is a massive cognitive load before you have even stepped onto the pavement. The preference for staying home is often just an avoidance of this friction. Leaving is often the hardest part, not the event itself, not even the people. Just the transition, the moment of putting on shoes, locking the door, stepping from one psychological environment into another. The mind begins projecting possibilities. How long will this last? Will it drain me? Will I be able to leave when I need to? It's not that you don't want to exist in the world, it's that the cost of transitioning into the world feels momentarily too high. The anticipation consumes more energy than the experience sometimes does. Crossing thresholds requires activation. Activation requires effort.
There is also the matter of identity. Environmental psychology suggests that our homes are not just containers for our bodies, they are scaffolds for our minds. When you are in public, you are in a shared reality. You are a commuter, a customer, or an employee. You are adapting to the group. But when you are home, you are surrounded by your own externalized memory. The books on the shelf remind you of what you know. The art on the walls remind you of what you love. The layout of the room supports your specific habits. Home acts as a second skin. In many ways, home holds the parts of you that the outside world doesn't see. It contains unfinished thoughts, comfortable clothing, unguarded expressions. It becomes less of a location and more of a psychological container. For people with a fragile sense of self, or for those who feel easily influenced by others, staying home is a way to solidify who they are. It is a place where you don't have to fight to maintain your identity. The room holds it for you.
Let's flip the script on the classic homebody stereotype. Finding deep comfort in your own space points to some incredibly strong character traits: a high degree of self-awareness, emotional independence, and a profound capacity for introspection. They tend to be highly sensitive to nuance, not just noise or light, but emotional shifts, subtle tone changes, unspoken tension in a room. This sensitivity can make them deeply empathetic listeners and careful observers of human behavior. Another common critique is that staying home is lazy, that it is about doing nothing. But if we look closer, people who genuinely enjoy staying home often cultivate patience, independence, and the ability to sustain attention. They learn how to sit with complexity. They build inner scaffolding instead of relying on constant external stimulation. In a culture that rewards visibility, they practice depth, and depth over time is what produces insight, craftsmanship, and originality. Because of this, the home often transforms into the ultimate incubator for deep focus and creativity. It's no coincidence that some of history's most outstanding works, from groundbreaking novels and timeless art pieces to world-changing inventions, were quietly brought to life in the solitary corners of a bedroom or a dimly lit home study. For those who love staying in, their four walls aren't a boundary keeping the world out. They are a safe haven that allows them to cultivate brilliant ideas, recharge their minds, and build a rich inner world that actually thrives in the beauty of solitude.
So, where does this leave the connection? There is a myth that people who stay home are disconnected, but often they are simply prioritizing depth over breadth. Because their energy is finite, they invested carefully.
Many people who prefer staying home are not lacking social interest. They are oriented toward depth. They would rather have one conversation that lingers than 5 that evaporate. They want spaces where silence is allowed, where they are not required to be impressive. Broad social networks can feel stimulating, but thin. Intimate connection feels slower, but more stabilizing. So they choose fewer rooms, fewer people, fewer interactions. Staying home doesn't mean you don't care about the world. It often means you care so much that you need to step back to process the weight of it. You are conserving your energy so that when you do connect, you can be fully present, rather than present but depleted.
It is important, however, to distinguish between regulation and rigid avoidance. Is the door locked because you love what is inside, or is it locked because you fear what is outside? The difference lies in the texture of the feeling. When staying home is healthy, it feels expansive. You choose to be there. You feel safe, and your world feels large enough within those walls. You could go out if you wanted to, but you are choosing not to. When staying home becomes a trap, the feeling changes. It starts to feel rigid. The idea of leaving feels dangerous. The walls stop feeling like a sanctuary and start feeling like a perimeter you cannot cross. When invitations create disproportionate dread, when the outside world starts to feel smaller, more threatening, more distant than it actually is, the mind can begin to associate safety only with confinement. And while retreat is natural, permanence can slowly narrow experience. If you find that your preference is driven by fear, fear of judgment, fear of being seen, fear of the unknown, then the home has ceased to be a den and has become a cage. The difference is rarely dramatic, it's subtle. Expansion versus contraction, choice versus compulsion. If you recognize yourself here, you do not need to force yourself to change. The world is a constant inhale, a demand for energy, attention, and action. Home is the exhale. Perhaps staying home is the pause between the world that asks for your energy and the quiet where you gather it back. It is in that pause that we remember who we are. And maybe the quiet relief of canceled plans isn't a sign that something is wrong. Maybe it's simply information, a signal about your current capacity, your current energy, your current rhythm. This isn't about fixing a preference, it's about noticing its shape. And if you find that your rhythm leans toward home, toward stillness, toward the quiet interior of your own space, that is not a flaw. It may simply be the way your nervous system balances itself in a world that rarely slows down. And if any part of this felt familiar, I'm curious what staying home means for you. Do you feel relief when plans change, or does it feel complicated? You can share as much or as little as you like in the comments. If these quiet reflections help you understand yourself a little better, you're welcome to stay. You can subscribe and return whenever you need a slower space to think.